Shut up and sit down. Shut up and sit down. Shut up.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome into the stream. It is a happy Friday. Hey, I am running a little late this morning. I apologize for that. It has been kind of a crazy little morning. I had a really late night trying to get a whole bunch of unit tests working of all things. Thankfully I got them working, but then, of course, like always, you're wired when you try to go to sleep, and it was a little rough getting up this morning. But I am thrilled to be here. We are going to finalize our Cypress test. Now let's lower this camera a tad bit. There we go. That's more like it. So we're going to finalize up our Cypress test. We're going to make sure that we're not making any actual API calls, that we're mocking out all of our API calls. We're going to look at doing some commands, and we're going to see if we can get a little bit of Travis CI work actually started. I do have a hard stop at noon Pacific time today for some meetings that I have to attend. But let's jump right into it and see where we were at with our Cypress test. Let's make sure all of our stuff is still running. So this is the app that we have been playing with. We have our login page here. And that we can sign in. We can also navigate to the sign up page. Once we're logged in, let's try this again. It would help if I started up the API. I specifically didn't start it because I was planning on making sure everything was mocked out, so we will start it temporarily, and just so we can show where we were at. Get our local API started up, which is a Sales.js API. Now let's try logging in. There we go. So now we can see we've got to-do items. We can check them off if they're done or not. They resort. They're all sorted alphabetically here. Here, little toggles. Switch our numbers update here as we toggle stuff on and off. Got a little confirm box before we delete. If we cancel, obviously it stays. We can add in new items and sort alphabetically. We got our 404 page. We saw the login. We saw the sign up, and we have a log out page. So all of these we've put under test so far. So let's kick off our test suite here. Let's make sure all of these are still running. It's always a good idea to make sure all of your tests are still running before you start making adjustments to them. Can't count the number of times that I'm like, yeah, they were running last time I used them, and then magically something broke them that I wasn't expecting, and then I spent time trying to figure out my code or broken test. Should run fairly fast here. About 30 seconds or so to run all of these. Way faster than if I did it by hand. And if you have any questions about Cypress or Angular or testing in general or anything else, feel free to throw it in the chat and I will get right to it for you. As well, let me know how your day is going. Sweet, so all of our tests passed here, so now we can actually do a little bit of refactoring. So let's actually stop our API here. Let's rerun these tests. See how many of them actually fail because the API is not up. And the ones that fail will hopefully be our indication that we are not mocking out our API. And the reason we're mocking our API is the things I'm concerned with when I'm doing UI testing is all the behaviors of the UI. I'm less concerned with the UI and API interactions. My expectation is that the API has a full set of tests to go with it as well. And that full set of tests is testing all of the data that we would pass in normally from the UI. Now, ultimately, I do want to at some point change all of these tests so that they can run against the actual API, but for now we're more concerned with the behaviors. That's the thing my QA department really is looking at, is all of the behaviors. We do a lot of security within our applications, so trying to get data in a spot where you can test all of the security roles, sometimes manually doing that can take them hours to get everything generated in the right places. So much easier to test behaviors. If I can mock out that code and then test that the UI does what it's supposed to, it saves hours worth of work for them. So we definitely have a couple test cases that failed here. So we can see our initial get to do. So when we're trying to do our delete, it is trying to get to do items and it is actually failing on that. So let's take a look at our delete test. And that's going to be under Cypress integration and under our to do items. Control J to minimize that terminal window that you saw up. And let's find our delete to do test. Here we go. So I'm going to look for our before each because it's not visiting anything right off the bat. And so that initial call that we saw, which is getting the initial to do items, is what is failing. And that should be in a before call. Okay, before each. Did all of these fail? So it failed one and didn't continue down to the rest of the CRUD. So the rest of them would have failed otherwise. So it tried to call. What did it try to call here? If I can get it to actually pop up for me. So it tried to call user login and user identity, neither of which did we actually call out here. So for each server, so here's where we would have mocked up those responses. So we would have said here cy-route URL method response, we'll say as identity. So the identity will ultimately be the user cookie, and this one will be the actual login. So the identity is what we get back from the login. So Let's take a look at our account one and see if we actually mocked these out. I don't know that we did. Does not look like we did. Looks like all of our login tests are going against the actual API. Yep, so none of these are mocking it out. So we will have to mock those as well, but let's start with this item here. Actually, take it back. We're going to start with the account one. We'll leave in here because all of the same stuff we're going to do for the account is exactly what we are going to do in the login page here. So let's turn back on our API, and we'll actually use Chrome here in a second and see what data we're passing in and what data that we're getting out from the actual API, so that we can put those as our mocked out response. Open up our Chrome DevTools here. Now we'll log in with our foo user. So this is the data that we're passing in. So we are going to do a post. See if we actually have a post in here that we have done. Let's snag these three. And we want to set this up before where you actually click an action. So you want to set up your CY-server, so your Cypress server, and your routes that you want to mock out before you actually do your action. That way you can actually put your wait call down here, and we will say login, and we're going to change this one to login. Now let's see what the URL actually is. User/login. 200 to be a post. And the response we're going to get back is this response. And then we also called identity, which looks like the same response. CY-route. Give it the object. Our object's going to take a URL. User identity. Status is going to be 200 is successful. Leave it to get. We will double check on that. And it is a get call. And let's give it our alias here as identity. We clicked it. We're going to wait for the login to happen, and then we are going to, in this case, we're going to get a different message back out of this one. So let's actually, we're going to move these ones into the actual real login. So let's create account, log into a non-existent. Where is our login to actually? So visit login, sign up form validation, login form validation. We're actually not testing real login. So we're testing the sign up page. Here's where we are testing the login. So we're creating the account, we verify the header, we log out, and we log back in. This way we have a full path set up. So let's stick in here. This is where our CY server where we'll go. And .wait at login. And we will wait for identity. We also need to mock out our signup. So let's take a look at what happens when we sign up. This should be a post, and we get a response back out of our post. CY-route URL /user. Make sure give me a status of 200. And how is everyone doing today? If you have any questions, feel free to post them into the chat and we'll get right to them. And right now we are just going through our Cypress test and making sure we mock out all of our API calls so that we truly are testing interactions and not worrying so much about what the API is actually doing. And the way to mock these out is our Cypress. So everything with Cypress is cy dot and then the command. So we start up our server. We put in the routes we want. So URL user. We want to return back a 200 for a post method. And here's our response we're going to get back. And then this as is just an alias. So that later on, when we actually do an action like clicking on the sign up button, we can tell it to wait. We say at sign up, which is our alias above. So it will wait for that API call, or XHR call actually to happen, and then it will continue on. So we've mocked out our sign up, we mocked out our login. And technically we can move these down a little bit. Move the login one down to where we're actually going to be. And let's see if it runs, and we're going to put a dot only on this because I only want to run this one test case. We're also going to stop our API. And if you have any questions about Cypress or Angular, put them into the chat window. Okay, we got all of our stuff mocked out for this, which is fantastic. We'll run it one more time just to make sure. And this is much faster than going to the API itself. So that piece is done. Now let's take our login here and our identity, and we need this in our to-do. Once add that in right here. So here we're going to mock out our adding of a new item, our getting of the initial items, which we want it to be blank. We're going to log in, which is a post, and we're going to get the user identity. So here we can say wait for at login and wait for at identity. Then we also already have our wait for our to-do items here. Let's take our dot only off of this method. And we will put it on our CRUD operators. See if we got everything mocked out like we're hoping. It did not quite get everything as we were hoping. Let's try it one more time. Ah, I see what is happening. It looks like because we mocked out our login, it potentially was skipping over the login page. Okay, let's try this one more time. Because technically we shouldn't be. Ah, I see what is happening. Which is actually a good thing for us. So because we mocked out this identity, we can actually skip having to log in every single time before our CRUD operator. So we can actually get rid of this. And we can get rid of this bit of code. Let me change this to cy.identity. So now it'll wait to get the login user info. Because we returned a 200 back from the API, our UI assumes that we're successfully logged in. Make our test go way faster. Fatted, how you doing? We are sitting here trying to refactor some tests so that we don't have to worry about our API actually working. And in this case, for the completed, I have not actually mocked that one out, obviously. So we will have to add that in. Let's take a look at completed. Let's turn our API back on. How is your day going? So what we need to see is what is the actual call that happens when we say complete an item. Audio for the stream is always an interesting thing to try and figure out. But if you're having any issues with it that you want to ask, feel free to ask me that. I'll see if I can point you in the right direction. We are already mocking it out. But we didn't tell it. We did tell it to wait for it. So why did it not wait? Let's look at this test again. Not that I think that is the problem, not having the status, but we will double check. I guess it was. Interesting. Let's take a look at the ad down here and let's see what the ad is doing. So expected it to contain ZZZ test 2. Timed out. Interesting. Ad, where did you? There we go. Unknown URL, okay. Ah, it's in the sorting. That's why I'm not finding it. So we need to mock out that call, and what did we call it? We're going to actually move our mock up to our, it'll be 4 each. Now in our sorting, we add our initial item here. And then down here, we are clicking on it to actually make it done, and we need to say .wait at to do complete. It looks like we are testing the toggle. Yeah, we'll try putting another weight down here. See what happens. Let's make sure it truly did what we wanted it to do. Okay, we completed the item. Found it. Made sure it contained it. And then we uncompleted it. Perfect. So now we've got that mocked out. Get rid of our dot only that's up top. See if we have any other mocks to add in. And it looks like we broke a bunch of stuff. So wait, can't find a registered alias for @login. Did I accidentally remove it? I may have. Sure appears like I did a cut instead of a copy. Make sure the rest of these pass the one hit or the one failure up top. And we'll come back to that failure because we haven't mocked that one out. So put for the login. I think I see what's happening. It is not a post, it's a put. Fix that one. Let's go back to to-do items and take a look at our validation and see what our validation is doing. So we should be able to get rid of this and say visit the home page /wait at identity. So we get our login info, and we no longer need to log in, and we'll make sure we're truly at the home page. Thought I had fixed those errors up top, but maybe I fixed one and broke something else. Fun of testing. I think I know what this problem is, and I think our describes are at the same level that they are. Let's snag this. So you want a CY server. And we need our identity route. That'll take care of that one, but let's look at our other failure that we had. CY wait could not find a registered alias for login. Find at, we know it's not in this file. Find at login. It should have had it already defined because this is an Ep4. Oh, it's not in Ep4. Oh, the sign-up's not in Ep4. I wonder about the rest. That would be why. So let's create Ep4 here. Put these two in there. We will leave our signup into this file, or in this test, as our signup method is only for this test. Wait for, actually, I'm going to undo this. We actually need to do is down here say cy.server cy.route the URL response 401. Actually, that'd be status. I'm not totally sure what response is going to return yet. We will check it out in a moment. Doing a put. User/login. Turn this back on. And the response actually is forbidden. Invalid login. Login invalid. Fourth time hopefully is the charm. So far, so good. we got a 403, which is not what I was expecting to see. Not totally sure why it's even trying to save right there. Let's look at CY-wait at I. Actually, that's the sign up event. Well, that's not the one we want. We want our form validation. So it waits for the identity, so it should be logged in. We're not actually saving anything. Interesting that it's throwing an error trying to save. Ah, I know what that is. It's actually not a saving error. That is, it's trying to pull its to-do items. Let's find our initial to-do items here. Let's bump. Copy that. Toss it into here. And wait at initial get to do. Even though it wasn't impacting the test, I still wanted the UI to look correct and not throw random errors. So take our dot only off, and let's make sure everything actually passes this time. Far so good. Sweet, so now we have refactored hopefully everything. Our API was running. Let's run them one more time without the API running. They should still all pass. No whammies. There we go. So totally mocked out our API from our UI so that we are just testing behaviors. And let's check these pieces in. So update Cypress test to mock API calls. And so now it doesn't matter what URL we actually have our stuff set to, or if the API is running. Everything is totally mocked out. So pretty cool that we're able to run 30 tests. That 31 test takes 36 seconds to run. And if we look at what these doing, it's testing, make sure our 404 page actually works, has the right data. Right now our 404 is pretty simple, it just says not found works. But you could test all the stuff that's in there. We test our navigation from our login page to our sign up page. We make sure login page is set correctly, finds the actual link, clicks on it, make sure the text is correct so that it actually says create account, clicks on it, and make sure that our URL updated to the sign up page. And then we do the exact opposite. We go from the sign up page, we go back to the login page. So we make sure all of that navigation working, we make sure all of the text is working. We go ahead and create an account. We verify that the header actually says that we're logged in. So up at the top here next to the welcome, once we actually get logged in, you'll see it says welcome and says the username and gives a logout button. We make sure all of those are visible. We make sure that when you click the logout button, it truly logs you out. And we stub our logout, make sure that the name and the logout disappear. And then we go through the login process, make sure it all works and gives us back to the home page. And then we test our validation to make sure if we have an invalid login, it gives us an error message here. We test all of our form validation for the login and the sign up. So we make sure that email validation works, make sure that the password validation works. There's a few things for email. So it's required and it has to be an email, so we test both of those. For password, we test that it's a minimum of 6 characters and that it's required, and that the right messages show up. Do the same thing for the sign up form. We test all of our menu items, and this is the only test that order of items on the page is actually important. Because it's a menu, we want to test that the menu's in the right order. So in the code, we'll actually make sure that the all items link is the first one, unknown second, logins third, and the sign up is the 4th item. We test in here that the text is correct for the links. We also test that they're the right number of items. We will test that the links go to the right spots. So we got down here making sure the login link goes to the right spot, make sure the router link goes to the right places. Then we test all of our CRUD operators. So deleting items, completing items, adding items. We test our sorting, and then we test our form validation on the home page. All of that in 36 seconds. So pretty darn impressive. And the next step really is to hook this up to Travis CI. We could before then keep modifying it, refactoring it, and create some custom commands like a go to homepage command, a login command, if we had commands that we needed to reuse. So say that our login that we had to do it before all of our tests, then what we can do is in Cypress they have this file called commands. It's under under support. Right. And we can say command add, give it a name. We can pass in arguments, and then you give it a function. This is a way to create reusable functions. So then we could just say cy.login. And it would automatically call this function with the email password that we passed in. Because we're not doing anything where we need reusable stuff, we're going to skip the command answer now since we'd just be creating one just to create one. But what I do want to hook up is Travis CI, so that we can get all of our test suite actually running in Travis. Let's take a look at, and let's see if I can pick the right one. I can never remember if .org or .com is the free one. So it looks like it's org. I'm expecting a pricing link at the top. So yes, so with Travis, their .com is their paid model, which means you can do private repos, and .org is the public one. Let's sign in here with GitHub. And let's hook up this repository. So Angular tutorial code. And I want settings. I want to see if I can limit it down to just one branch. So only on master. And the reason I want to limit it to just one branch is I know all of the unit tests don't actually pass until you get to the unit test branch, and there's no Cypress test until you get to the UI branch, since this is a workshop where we build it up chapter by chapter. It doesn't look like there's a way to limit branches. Let's see, limit branches. That might be in the Travis config file and not actually in the UI. Building specific branches. So it'll be in the Travis YAML file. Perfect. That's easy enough. We will close our API so we don't need it. Just make sure all of our stuff truly checked in. It is. So to use Travis, they have a .travis. Add a file. Okay, VS Code wants to be difficult. All right, new file. .travis.yaml. YML. It might actually be .travis CI YAML. Oh, .travis YAML. And let's actually, I have one already, and we're going to start with that one. So what this says is start with a Node.js as a build or container essentially. So use the LTS builds. So I like to stay on the LTS ones. We want to cache certain things like npm, our node modules, the cache folder. We're going to override a few files. And then we're going to do npm CI to do our install. So instead of npm install, npm CI is faster than running the install and make sure that everything looks great. And then we're going to run our CI. So we're going to actually create this CI command here. We go into our package. It looks like we have a CI command in here. Let's take a gander at this. So the thing we haven't added in is any Cypress commands. So Cypress, npx Cypress open, because we want the UI. Call it Cypress CI. npx Cypress run. Say video equals false, because we don't want it to generate videos right now. If we go look in this repository, there's a slew of things that are in here as well. So we will actually just copy all of these Cypress commands. Do it the easy way. Versus reinventing the wheel. And we'll give this a different name. There we go. So, CY run, this is going to use our program called start server and test. So this will actually start up a server pointing to our repository, and we will figure out what our distribution directory is here in a moment, because it's not Cypress CI, but it's going to start on localhost port 4200. This -c -1 says don't cache anything at all. Once it's done opening that, the start server and test is going to wait to respond for a response from this localhost 4200, and then it's going to run this cy:\run command. This just kicks off Cypress from the command line. And for now, let's turn off videos. We don't need it to generate videos. Like I was going, I think it's just this. But one way to find out. So npx Cypress run -- video equals false. Are you on a Mac or a Windows PC? That's no opcat. And I know she has a Medium article. See if I can find it. One more down. Okay, figured she might be using loopback for that. I know on Windows you can use the virtual audio cable. I don't think they make a Mac version. Guys, this looks 100% like Windows. And I'm only using the virtual audio cable for the music that you're hearing on streaming. So if you're not streaming music with it, I don't know that you truly need loopback for that. I just set up OBS so that my microphone is one of my sound sources, or my headset is one of my sound sources. And for the intro and outro audio, they're just MP3s that OBS plays for me. So really only need the Soundflower or loopback or virtual audio cable if you want to route something like music onto your stream, and you don't necessarily want it coming through your headset at the same time. Like if you just play music and you have your system sounds routing through OBS, it'll pick up any audio that you happen to be playing, but that also means that you don't have the option to turn it off. Loop back. And I'm on a Windows PC, hence why I'm not using loopback. So it looks like they have a free version, but is there some limitations for it? Yeah, I know it's not available for Windows. Is your user coming in through Skype? Because if so, you could look at the NDI plugin that's supposed to be able to capture the Skype sounds, and then you can route them into OBS. I know I have not used NDI, but Jeff Fritz, who is known as C# Fritz, has tons of guests on his stream, and he uses the OBS NDI plugin to capture all of their Skype sounds. I've not used VS Code Live Share with audio chat. I've only used VS Code Live Share before they had the audio chat. Ooh, see if there's other. They potentially might get an echo, but you might be able to just route your straight system sound over. Yeah, I've not had a guest on my stream yet, so those are always interesting times to figure out. And I'd point you to Jeff Fritz, but he is using a mixer and has a really complicated setup where he routes his computer into a mixer and routes his microphone into a separate channel on the mixer and does a bunch of stuff routing back and forth. Way more complicated than you probably want to figure out in an hour. So loopback may unfortunately be your option, even though it is a $100 charge. And that is a bummer that it stops after 20 minutes. But if you're going to stream all the time, and you plan to have guests on, or you plan to play music, this is the way to get it kind of on stream without it truly routing through all of your system sounds. And then we can always look at off stream after this. We could always look at trying to play around with getting all of it working with having guest interactions. I have all of the equipment that Jeff Fritz has. I have the mixer. I have all of the cables to run the stuff. I have not actually tried hooking up my stream that way and tried having a guest on yet. I thought, you know what, I'm going to go really simple since I'm not planning on having guests immediately on, and just do the headset and skip the mixer since it's a little complicated to get all of that working. Back to our test here and see if we put dash video, because dash video obviously did not work. So we could actually find the right setting here. Try dash C for config. Say zero equals false. I feel your pain with the procrastination. I literally showed up 1 minute before my stream started to happen at the location that I streamed and rushed to get everything set up. The dash C video equals false. Looks like it is not generating videos for us. And one of the reasons I don't want to initially generate videos is I have absolutely no clue how to expose them in Travis CI. So I figured no sense in wasting the time to create a whole bunch of videos showing all the tests running if I can't actually expose them. And I said we were going to look up our distribution folder here, and it is called NGWS. That is the name of our app. Okay. So now we have a few things that we actually need to install. Install -save-dev start-server-and-test and http-server. So those are the two things we're going to run. One right here and one right here. Let's try changing this. We're going to actually swap these around. So we want to lint our stuff. We want to run our unit test. Then we want to do a production build and run our UI against the production build. One of the reasons to run our Cypress test against the prod build is I have had times where everything works great in the development build. We run a production build, and with all of its tree shaking, it found some variable that wasn't right that we hadn't found, or some other random thing that blew up. So let's run our test cases against the actual prod build and make sure nothing blows up here. And we're gonna we need one more. So here, figure out what run S pulls in. We can figure out which npm package that came out of. There we go, npm run all. So this gives us the ability to run npm scripts in parallel or in a serial fashion. And that's what this run S is. So we want to run everything in serial. So we want to run lint CI, test CI, build prod, and then run our Cypress stuff. Once this finishes install, we will kick off our npm script here. npm run CI. If everything's working right, we should lint our stuff, run our Angular unit test, run our Angular prod build, and then run all of our Cypress test. It is always a good thing to test all of your CI commands before you actually run them. Try to run them on your CI server so that you're not troubleshooting issues with the script versus infrastructure. Let's take a look at what failed here. It looks like I have some linting errors. I have not obviously run lint in a while. Line 26. And we don't need to set that as a number. I have a feeling some of these errors have been in here for a bit, and because it's a demo app, we have not run any of our pieces on any kind of a CI server. Get a brace stuff. Hate when I see braces and everything's on the same line. It wants these to be constants. My assumption. Let's see. Love how it wants me to use constants at a let since we're not reassigning it, but we're not actually setting them up to a value initially. Come back to that one. Good luck on your stream as well. I will join you at some point, probably around the 12:30ish time frame, since I have a meeting from 12 to 12:30. Anyway, good luck on your stream. I will catch you in there. And thank you for joining me today. Since we know our linting is failing, let's just npm run lint. Get our linting failures fixed first. Turn off wrapping. Where is that option? We'll just disable that one rule. Getting closer, and we can figure out our pipe test case. We are injecting item pipe and date pipe. About ready to tell it to ignore this. But it feels wrong to tell it to ignore it. Before each, we're going to inject everything in there. We don't want to make it a const because we do set it right here. Everything should pass at this point for linting. Then we can go back and try to run our unit tests. Just run them all independently. XJSON npm run test. So this pop up our Chroma window here, or Karma window, not Chroma, Karma. Wow, I obviously need a little bit of caffeine because there's only water in the bottle. We can fix that by undoing these two. Rerun our Karma test. So it was complaining about the URL, and we had changed the URL to be localhost during our testing of Cypress, but our unit tests are expecting it to be our actual API. Rickson, 61 tests, they all passed. We will at some point need to cover all of the unit tests on stream and go through and take a look at those. And because I didn't close Karma here, it keeps trying to relaunch Chrome for me. Okay, so that worked. The next piece is our npm run prod build. Actually, let's just do npm run CI. Let's let it run all of them. And one of the reasons I'm also running everything serially versus in parallel, because I could run linting and our unit test and our prod build all at the same time, which would be great for performance, but from a logging standpoint, the logs were totally intermixed when I tried it. So when something did fail, it was tough to figure out, was it linting, was it testing, was it the actual build, because all the messages were going at the same time and intermixed. It wasn't like linting waited till it was done running and threw everything in the log at once. And same thing for test, it threw it as it went. And this time we shouldn't launch a Chrome window because we're running in Chrome headless for our CI, because there's no user interaction on a CI server, so you don't want to start up a UI like Chrome that potentially could get in a hung state. So linting passed, it looks like all of our test cases passed. We're off to our ng build prod. And we're going to definitely have to figure out how do we get our unit test working on Travis CI. I'm not totally sure how to get Chrome headless working on Travis CI. Oh, looks like our build failed. For an ng bootstrap date picker. How awesome. I wonder if there is an ng bootstrap update, which there probably is. Oh, big time update. Look at all of these. And we can actually uninstall this one. We're going to actually undo all of these versions because we're going to change them a different way. First, we're going to get rid of this rebug software. This was for adding in TypeScript, and we chose to uninstall it on the last stream. As TypeScript with Cypress, or Cypress with TypeScript, not quite fully baked yet. It felt like I kept running into random issue after random issue where something that worked with Cypress just using JavaScript didn't work right in TypeScript, whether I needed to define some additional interfaces for like custom commands. The Windows confirm that we're using for the delete button wasn't fully stubbed out. They've fixed it, but it's still in their development branch. So just those couple of things that I found just made it feel a lot more unstable. So I didn't want to keep playing with those pieces. So let's go in here and let's add in that we removed the free bug Cypress Matic. And we're going to stash the rest of this. Actually, we're going to check this in too. I'm going to pin our last one. Always a good thing to check in our lock file as well. Let's stash this and let's go all the way back here and let's pick out our first chapter, which is Project Create, I believe. As soon as I can find it. Project created. Because this tutorial starts at the very beginning of Project Create and builds itself up, when we do updates for all the dependencies, we want to start at the lowest or the very first branch and build ourselves up here. 703. I wonder what we were truly at for Angular these days. 729. So let's do an ng upgrade. Update. I just want to do upgrade, and it's always update. Really liking the music that Pretzel Rocks is pulling in today. So Pretzel Rocks is a really cool free streaming service for streamers. And the only requirement is if you want the free version, it puts a message into your chat window when a new song starts, or you can pay $4.99 a month and not have that restriction, but all the music is royalty free, so you won't get muted on Twitch, you won't get claims on YouTube. So let's upgrade everything here. So dash all. And once this is done, we'll start up the server, make sure everything is working okay. And then we will commit the branch, pull it on the next one, merge in the previous one. Looks like we might need to do some additional dates. So let's say ng update at Angular/CLI. I've noticed sometimes the -- all works and sometimes it doesn't, and I end up running each command individually. Wait for this funness to run. And we do have about 25 minutes left on the stream, and then I have to run off to a meeting. So chances are we won't get the Travis CI stuff actually implemented today. What we will do is continue that on our next stream, which will be a week from Monday. It will be on the 25th. Unfortunately, I do not believe I'll be streaming next week, as I will be at an event next week, and I'm totally unsure of internet connection, as well as the times that I normally stream are going to be right in the middle of the event, and I can't stream at the event. The event is the Microsoft MVP Summit, and all the sessions are under NDA, so I think they would really, actually I know they would really frown on me even if I went outside and started up a stream. There's always the chance that somebody says something, and I value my Microsoft MVP enough that I don't want to even risk it at all. And I'm also sharing a hotel room with another MVP. I don't think the other MVP would enjoy if I started streaming at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning while he's trying to sleep. That would not be a way to make friends. But tomorrow I may try a pop-up stream. I have not actually tried to stream from my house because the upload bandwidth is normally just the bare minimum to stream. But I at least want to try it, as I've streamed more now that I've gotten the whole OBS setup down. I've reduced down some of the bit rate. I want to see if I can actually stream from home. That would give me the opportunity to stream more often. Right now I'm streaming out of a co-working space in Chandler, Arizona called Gangplank. I think they happen to have a podcasting room here, but you can also come in and use the desk, and they've got all the sound treatment on the walls. And so I'm streaming out of here, and they have gigabit internet, which is fantastic. So we got our CLI updated. Let's update our Angular core. But I would love to be able to stream out of my house and stream more often. I'm typically working on presentations and code most nights these days. And there's no reason I couldn't stream that stuff. Doing a little cleanup here, getting rid of some files that we stashed away. After our Angular core is done, we are going to ng update RxJS. Then we'll also run an npm outdated and see what stuff needs to be updated here. The fun of running npm updates and installs takes a little bit of time. So we're waiting for this. If you have any questions, throw them into the chat. And I do try to keep this application, even though it's a demo app, up to date, as I am giving the workshop at 2 conferences. So if you want to learn how to build the whole to-do application from start to finish and understand how Angular works, I am giving the workshop at Kansas City Developer Conference, so KCDC, in the middle of July. And then I have a conference that is tentatively scheduled but not announced yet in the October timeframe. Once it gets announced, I will put that out on my blog and let people know, and we can talk about it. I'm going to do some enhancements too this year to the workshop. The workshop is typically ended before we've done unit testing, but there's some stuff I think we can actually not cover anymore, or we're doing template forms and reactive forms. You can see if I can shrink some of that down, shrink some of the labs down, and so that we can add in some more testing. Talk about unit testing, talk about Cypress testing in there. So our update command finished. Now we want to do RxJS. Because I would really like to finish off that workshop of having everything done and not going, hey, here's a testing video, here's a Cypress video. I feel like it shortchanges people. Even though all the stuff's in the video, I'm not right there while they're watching the video. They can't ask me questions. They can't try it out and have a walkthrough lab. So I want to get all of that actually working. So on one of our streams, Seems probably in the May timeframe we'll actually write the walkthrough labs. So now that our updates are done, let's run an ng serve. Let's make sure the Angular stuff is still running. And everything should build. I know none of the unit tests, actually this branch, the unit test might actually pass because it's just a new project. And so out of the box, the unit tests pass. But after this, as we start adding components, none of the unit tests work until we get to the unit testing chapter. And that was just due to the workshop trying to get people to do unit tests at the same time. Just doesn't really work. Like, the goal wasn't to do test-driven development for it. It was for them to figure out how to write Angular code, and I didn't want to spend all day doing testing in a non-testing workshop. So that piece works. Let's do an npm out. Okay, did here? So I believe that is the command to show us all the npm packages and check to see if we have any outdated ones. So it looks like we were behind on a few here. So where is the npm dev kit? Jasmine can get updated as well. And yes, I know I could run a command for this. Kind of like doing it this way, then I'm a little more specific of exactly what we're doing. I definitely don't want 11 for this. So we'll have to look at which version of that we want. Definitely don't want to pull in a beta version of Codalizer. Kind of surprised that actually showed up. So we'll update Jasmine as well. That one's already good. Karma's got a giant update. Jasmine has an update as well. So we got the reporter. We'll update Protractor for now, even though we did rip it out during our Cypress testing. So where TS-lint is actually at 514. And then TypeScript. Interesting, they did 4 numbers at the end. And yes, I know it would have pulled these ones in. Angular router. Let's look down here. Make sure everything looks good. And npm install. Get all the ones that are out of there. Thankfully, once we get this piece updated, most of it is just merging into the other branches. Our next branch does add in Bootstrap and I believe Fonta Awesome. And so we'll make sure we get the right versions in there. But then on the next 7 or 8 chapters, it's just a matter of hold on the code, merge in the code, push it up. Wait for npm install to run. In the meantime, feel free to ask any questions that you have, whether it's Cypress, Angular, anything about streaming or OBS or careers, anything that you want. And we'll see how far we get in the next 15 minutes. I do have a call at noon that I have to hop off the stream for. But we may stream again tomorrow from my house. And we'll see how that actually goes. biggest concern is dropping frames. I know I've dropped a few today. Here. A lot more than normal, but still not super high. So hopefully it hasn't impacted you. I am totally digging the tracks from Pretzel today. It's like watching paint dry. I hope everyone's having a good coding day and a great Friday. Right now we are just updating all of our dependencies in here. We were working on integrating Travis CI or adding Travis CI to our project. And when we went to go run our unit test and our linting and our prod build actually failed for us on one of our dependencies. And our dependencies was a couple versions out of date. And the way that this project happens to be structured is it is a workshop application that's built from scratch all the way through finished product. And along the way, there's multiple chapters in the workshop, and every chapter has its own branch. So in order to do these updates, we have to start back at the project created and then pull all of our dependencies forward. Else we get into merge conflict nightmare trying to backport projects. All right. Now our next step here is look at our already in our package JSON. Let's run ng-lint. Let's make sure all of our linting stuff's working. We'll run our test and then we'll run our build and then our server. Just make sure everything is actually running. And I'm overly cautious when I do all of these updates, since it is for workshops, and every one of these branches is listed in the workshop as a starting point in case you weren't able to get the previous chapter done. So everything needs to actually work. We're in ng-serve, which will run our ng-build and then start our server up. Let's give it a moment to compile here. Interestingly, the Angular compiler wants the previous version of this. Let's do 3.3.0. Actually, let's not save this. I didn't undo it just to see the version. So 3.3.0. What did it used to be? Get our Git tool here and .1.6, because we want it to be less than 3.3.0. Not 1.6. And it was the tilde. Oh, you type script at 3.1.6. I don't really have to worry about that one. Let's take a look at the actual releases here and check out the release numbers. What was the one right before 3? So 3.2.4 is really the one we should be installing. So we'll go 3.2.4. That looks to be the last one before the 3.3. Good thing I just didn't upgrade and call it good. On NPM. Now let's try ng serve and see if a compiler can work. There we go. So here, refresh. Everything is working, so let's stop our server. Let's do our check-in. And update dependencies. And merge chapter project created into Snap. Of course, there's merge conflicts. And let's add in just the stuff that we need here. ArcGIS tslib. This was something new. You know what I am going to say? Just take everything on Bootstrap for now. Commit and merge. The first thing we're going to do is run an npm install anyway after we get our dependencies updated here. Quickly update all of our dependencies. Bootstrap, we'll see how far out our ngx bootstrap is, which is quite a ways. And everything else should actually be the same as before. Yep. So npm install. We'll get our updated font awesome, our ng bootstrap, and our bootstrap. And once this piece is done, we are going to call it for the stream so that I can get ready for my meeting that I have at noon that I cannot be late for. Luckily, it's a virtual meeting, so it's just a matter of calling into it, but I do have to pull out the work laptop and get it all logged in. Let's run our ng serve. Everything should compile here. It's taking its sweet time. There we go. Refresh our page here. This is exactly what we expect to see. Make sure there's no console errors, which there is not. Let's do an ng build prod as well. Let's see if this fixes our building issue that we had before. So I haven't added in all of the npm commands. Build --prod. One of the later chapters in the workshop actually adds in all of those scripts to our package.json. And this build takes a little longer because it is doing tree shaking, which means that it's taken all of the code that's potentially in the project and looking to see if it's being used, and if it's not, it throws it out the window and just keeps the stuff that we're using so that we get a smaller bundle size. As you can see here, our bundle size is a little big. It's 5.2 megs for the vendor one now. In our non-build or non-prod build, we will see that will be drastically smaller in our production build. And it just always holds at 92% as it's optimizing everything. If yours holds at 92%, just let it go for a little bit. So here we go. We can see our styles dropped from 800K down to 139K. Yeah, our polyfills dropped from 235 down to 61. Our main JS dropped from, well, it went from 9K up to 743K, but it pulled in our vendor JS as well into it. So 5 megs down to 743. And then our runtime at 1.4 instead of 6, a much smaller bundle size. So let's go ahead and merge these changes in. say update dependencies for font awesome and bootstrap. Let's actually push that change up. We're going to pull back down the project created, make sure we actually push that one up as well. I am definitely notorious for not pushing up the branches once they were done and realizing later, yep, we had not pushed that one up. So at this point, we have started all of our dependency updates. I will finish up all the dependency updates so that on our next stream, we can hop right back into Travis CI, and we can get that implemented. We got held up on actually being able to do a production build due to one of our dependencies not being able to do the tree shaking that it expected. Now that we've updated the dependency of that, we just have to pull it forward into all the different chapters until we get to the UI test chapter. And then we'll be ready to implement Travis CI. So we will definitely do that on our next stream. We also in this stream finished up all of our Cypress UI test. Everything is fully mocked out, so we don't have to start up our API as to go along with our UI testing. And let's actually push that piece up. Let's pull back out real quick. Let's actually pull back out that chapter. So I just pulled down the UI test, and let's push that up there so that we have the latest test that we've done up on GitHub, because I noticed it wasn't there from the last stream. So now if we go to github.com/digitaldrummerj, right in the Angular pin, Angular tutorial code, and we can see here we've pushed everything up there. So this is where you can find all of the code that we have been working on, and we will continue working on this code in our next time. Until then, thank you so much for joining me, and have a wonderful rest of your day.